Hello, my name is Michael Stone, and I am the creator of NeuroDynamic Breathwork. And today, I'm here to talk to you about finding your authentic self with breathwork. So just first, a little background on myself, um, so I can kind of demonstrate the process that I went through. And that is, I was born into a just fairly normal family, not a lot of trauma or anything like that. I was always very smart, so I always did very well in school from the thinking mind perspective, things that I had to reason out or work through. So I got good grades, and I was growing up, and I was always very good in school, all the way through high school, college. But on the other side of it, in relationships, it was a complete disaster. And the frustrating part was I couldn't figure it out. And it was one of my major goals in life to be in a good relationship, to have kids just like my parents. And I was kept thinking, I'm smart, I'll figure this out, but I never did. Each of my relationships was very short, 3 to 6 months, and always ended up very dramatically and not in a good way. And back in the state of consciousness I was in, what I was thinking was, I just have to meet the right woman. That's it. Once I meet the right woman, everything's going to be okay. And I wasn't far enough ahead in my thinking at that point or in my personal development to actually see that there was only one common thing in all those relationships. It wasn't the woman, it was me. So I just kept trying and trying and trying. And even though I was very successful in work in all the other areas of my life, since relationship was a priority for me, I still felt like a failure. And I didn't feel good about myself. So 90% of my life was awesome, but I didn't feel any joy really. And then one day I met a woman that I wanted to have a relationship with. We ended up going down to South America, and I ended up doing an ayahuasca journey. And I had no idea what it was. It was just this shaman that went out into the Amazon with us, and said, "Do you want to do a religious ceremony?" And I ended up drinking this stuff. I didn't even know what it was, and had this amazing journey. And it was really the first time in my life that I felt connected, that I felt connected to life, connected to the planet, connected to other people. And after that experience, I realized I never really noticed how disconnected I was. It was kind of like one of these unconscious things that I wasn't aware of. And I just became aware of how I'd been living my life in a way where I was protecting myself in a certain way. And I still didn't know why, though. So when I got back, I said, okay, if I can have this kind of experience with a substance, there has to be other ways to have that experience without the substance. The receptors are there in my brain. So I started exploring, and ultimately it brought me to breath work. And the first type of breath work that I tried was, or that I really got involved with, was holotropic breath work. And I did because the founder, Dr. Stan Grof, did it through a scientific way. And, versus some of these other breath works that were out there where it was kind of like the person who developed it was, when I asked, how did you figure this out? I downloaded it from the universe. I'm going, not for me. And just to give you a little background, I'm totally scientifically oriented. I'm an engineer, science, neuroscience, that whole thing. So back then, if it wasn't based on science, I was not interested. And I always, when someone wanted me to try something, historically, I was going, show me the proof, show me the evidence that it works. So back when I was growing up, I would have never even tried something like breath work. It would have been way too woo-woo for me. But at this point, I'd already seen, like with the ayahuasca, that, okay, there's something here that's going on that I'm not really sure what it is. So maybe I should open my mind to trying different types of things. And so with holotropic breath work, I gained a lot of confidence because Dr. Grof, a psychiatrist who'd done research with LSD psychotherapy, then developed holotropic breathwork through his experience with LSD psychotherapy and trying to develop a modality that would give people the same healing effects, where many times through just one session of LSD psychotherapy, he would get the same benefit as years of talk therapy. So I dived in and did my first experience. It was amazing. It was similar in the level of depth that the ayahuasca experience had been. And I went, I'm hooked. This is for me. So I started doing more and more breath work, holotropic breath work. And in just the first series of experiences, I got to the bottom of what was going on with me in relationships. And what I saw was that when I was young, and many times in breath work, you actually go back to the visually kind of to these experiences when you were young and kind of see things that you'd forgotten or see things from a different perspective. And only when you can bring them to consciousness, you can start to work with them. And in one of my experiences, I kind of dove back into my past when I was a young child. And I remembered when my mother had told me about this experience that she had gone through as a child. Both of my parents are Nazi Germany escapees, Jewish, and where her family had been in Germany for hundreds of years, were completely ensconced in the society, were rooted, had contributed to Germany in many, many ways. My grandfather was a World War I hero. One of my ancestors had saved their town by paying Napoleon to go around it and not burn it to the ground and kill everybody. And then from one day to the next, she had to run for her life. And she didn't tell me this, but what I drew from that, the meaning that I took from that was, if you can't trust your country that you've been in for centuries to have your back, so to speak, what can you trust? Who can you really trust? So I made an unconscious decision at that point. The world is an unsafe place. And when you're coming from this inner way of being, of this decision that you've made of it's an unsafe world, it's impossible to have a good relationship, because you always get to a certain place in the relationship, and then it's kind of like this unconscious conditioning kicks in. Don't get any closer. It's not safe. The person may hurt you. You can't trust anybody. And that's what was happening with me. I was getting to a certain place, and then it kind of shut down emotionally. So it really had nothing to do with the woman. It was all on my side. And I realized at that point, I used to think that relationships were about, who do you choose? Like, which woman do you choose? And that completely flipped around for me. And it now became, what it was really about was, who do I choose to bring to the relationship? Which piece of myself? And I made a decision at that point. In the future, I'm not going to bring that piece of myself that feels like I'm in an unsafe world. And that started to heal. In future relationship, and this is not something that happened overnight. This took a period of time. This had been an unconscious thinking pattern for me for years, decades. But I started to notice it. And when it came up, I stopped it. And I would just, instead of just kind of shutting down, I would tell the other person I was with, this is coming up for me right now, but I'm working with it. So it brought me closer to the other person. It didn't pull me further apart. And ultimately, I ended up resolving my whole relationship issue through breathwork, to the point where now, instead of being in a series of 3-month relationships, I've been in one solid, amazing relationship for over a decade. And not that there's no issues, there's no problems, things don't come up, but we're both committed to working together to work through things and to expand and grow together. So that was something that I had worked through. But as happens sometimes in breath work, once you kind of see what's going on in one thing, it kind of creates a space for seeing other deeper things that are also issues and problems. And what I saw was that I wasn't really happy and joyful in my work life. And even though I was very successful, I was making a lot of money, I was building businesses, I didn't feel like I was contributing to the world. I didn't feel like I was making a difference. And I didn't have a solution for it at that point. But I did see that at some point, something was going to have to shift there if I was really going to have a joyful, satisfying life. And as I did more and more breath work, I saw, you know what, this is something. I not only saw my experience, but I saw other people having these really breakthrough experiences where they were resolving issues. They were getting solutions to problems that had haunted them in their lives. They were having breakthroughs in not only their relationships, but their families and their work lives. And I said, okay, I want to bring this to other people in my life in Los Angeles, to people I care about, to other people in the city. And so I went through a 2-year training program to be a facilitator in holotropic breathwork and started facilitating breathworks. And what I saw was that I was really good. And when I went through the training program, I had no idea if I was going to be a good facilitator. But the interesting part was that the fact that I had gone through this experience of feeling that the world is an unsafe place and working through my own blocks in that area. And as I said, it took a bit of time to do so. I had to do a lot of work on myself. But having worked through that, that then became one of my strengths, that I could work with other people who were also having those same issues. And what I found was that one of the most important things in being a successful breathwork facilitator is to be able to hold space for other people so that other people feel safe in dropping into sometimes very difficult experiences. Because sometimes they're very blissful. But sometimes, you work through childhood trauma or other things that have been holding you back in your life. And you have to feel safe in order to allow yourself to drop into those experiences. And what I found was that because of my background and history of working through it myself, that people felt incredibly safe with me. And we're having really, really, really deep experiences. And after a decade of doing this, of hosting holotropic breathwork experiences, what I saw was that even though it's an amazing modality, I didn't feel like I was being able to influence and work with enough people to make a difference in the world, to make a major contribution in the world. And it's a huge project to put on a holotropic breathwork workshop. You need one facilitator for every 10 participants. You can only do them in person. They're 3-hour breathing sessions. They're sitters and breathers. So an in-person workshop is about 10 hours. So, people have to be able to take a whole day out of their lives. Many people, if they weren't in LA, had to fly in, fly back out. And I had to fly in facilitators from, around the country. And it was a huge project. So I was only able to do maybe 4, 5, 6 workshops a year, with 40 people a workshop. So I was able to actually influence maybe a couple hundred people a year. And what I saw in one of my own breathwork sessions was that it was my mission, my passion in life to bring this to enough people in the world to make a difference in world consciousness. And that couldn't be done in doing in-person breathwork. It just wasn't possible. And what I saw was that it had to be done online. It's the only way to do it. And kind of fast forward, I spent the next year just kind of developing this new modality that I created called NeuroDynamic breathwork, which could be done in person, but also online, and created a community that is 65,000 people right now around the world and from over 120 different countries. And what I saw was that not only was I able to make a huge difference in people's lives, and part of that was because I'd gone through my own, you can call it a trauma or unconscious block, however you see it, in order to develop my own superpower, I call it, where I saw that holding space for people to have this type of deep experience had turned from, my own struggle to actually my greatest ability. And I was able to use that in a way to make a difference in the world. And what I saw was that other people who were working with me in breathwork were also able to find and become more clear on their own life purpose and become clear on how they could make a contribution to the world and what their superpower was. Many times people work through trauma and then they afterwards said, you know what, I want to work with other people that are having to work through childhood trauma because I know now what it feels like and I know I can contribute to their lives. And what we found was through surveys that over half of the people that participate in neurodynamic breath work get more clear on what their purpose in life is. And it's just incredibly heartwarming for me just to be able to hold space for that. And in breath work, I'm not the one who's doing the work, in the type of breath work that I developed. It's a non-directive breath work. So in other words, I'm holding space for the group. I set up the container. I make it a safe container to prepare everybody for what the experience is going to be, everything that can happen, so they feel really confident and comfortable. I'm there for them during the session. That's online and in person. And online, you can communicate through private chat. We do them on Zoom. So I'm available to them. But what's happening is that through the faster, deeper breathing, they're quieting their ego mind and connecting to what I call an inner guiding intelligence. And in the same way that your body knows how to heal itself after you have a cut or when you get sick, all those trillions of cells know exactly what to do to heal you. In the same way, your psyche has this drive towards integration, health, and wholeness. It's just that we're very disconnected from that in our everyday life because of this crazy ego mind that's constantly chattering, and we just don't have a very good connection to this quiet inner voice that has all of the answers that we need. So through breath work, again, through this faster, deeper breathing, and we do it to music. Music is also an important part of the experience to allow you to dive deeply into the process. The ego mind quiets and people connect very, very deeply to this inner guiding intelligence. And their inner guiding intelligence is what brings them the experience that they're ready to have. So we always tell people, don't set any expectations, don't set any intentions, just turn it over to your own inner guidance. And so in addition to getting the benefit of the experience that they get during that particular session, the other benefit is that they start to trust themselves more. They start to see that the answer lies within. And they start to trust themselves more in their life. As they get more and more confident as they have these experiences, they also start to be able to connect better to this inner guiding intelligence. And people call it by different names. Some people call it connecting to source, higher self, inner intuition, inner wisdom, but they started to connect better. And again, more than 60% of people report after doing this breath work and after doing it on a regular basis, and we do 20 live sessions every month, so we've structured it so that people can do it as like a practice, as a yoga, to start to strengthen that neural pathway to their inner guiding intelligence so they can bring that benefit back into their lives. So, and they started to connect better in their lives. And they started to see, just like I did, that maybe what they were doing wasn't really what was satisfying them. And they started to see that many parts of their life, they weren't being authentic. It was more about unconscious patterns. And where they were, like for instance, in our society, and now I'm talking about, I live in the United States, so I'm much more familiar with that. So I have lived in Europe too, but where it's in our society's benefit to make us think that we're not happy now, but if we only buy what they want to sell us or do what they tell us to do, then we'll be happy. Like, if you buy this car, you're going to be happy. Oh, you're not happy now, but if you buy this car, you'll be happy. Or if you have this huge TV, then you'll be happy. Or whatever it is that they want to sell you. You just take this course and everything will be fine. And we hear that like a drumbeat from the time we're little children. And it's this unconscious pattern where very few people are happy. It doesn't even matter if you have money. It's always you're on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And through breath work, you start to see that, all of that stuff is an illusion. You have the power to be happy in this moment. You don't need to buy another car. You don't need to have a big house. And you start to connect to your inner resources and start to see again that you have all the resources you need within yourself to lead an amazing, happy life that has meaning. Ultimately, the only way with something experiential like breath work to really know if it's something that you resonate with, that works for you, is to experience it for yourself. So what I'm offering on my platform, which is breathworkonline.com, is that everybody that comes in gets first session free. And then after the first session, if it's something that you feel like brings you benefit, then we allow you to experience it for a whole month for free. We do 20 live sessions every month, and everybody has kind of a different cadence that works for them. Some people do breath work once a week, and it's kind of like feeling into what the best cadence is for you. But there is a benefit to doing it on a regular basis, like a yoga, so to speak. Like, let's say you do it every Sunday morning. And so when Sunday's coming up, your psyche is already getting ready because it knows that it has time to release, that it has time to bring up what needs to be brought up to bring you closer to wholeness and health and full vitality. So, but again, it's totally up to you how many times you participate, but we do offer 20 a month. And my fervent goal for this breath work is that everybody that comes in finds their purpose. Everybody that comes in releases what no longer serves them. Everybody that comes in gets more in touch with their authentic self. And so I invite you to give it a try, and I hope to see you in a breathwork session soon.